Alright, so it took a month longer than it should have, but I finally got my hands on the Charizard EX League Battle Deck. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to unbox this, look through all the cards, and the second thing I wanted to do is the reason why I wanted to do this video was because I know a lot of people have been saying, and it's true, that this is a very good value for money deck, right? Either the Pidgeots, the Charizards, the Prime Catchers, a lot of very valuable cards in here, but I think the one big thing is that a lot of new players see this and they go, look at some of the recent regionals and some of the recent events, and you see Charizard is doing really well there. Surely if I buy the Charizard deck, I will do just as well. The decks you see at the regionals and the deck that you get out of this box here are not the same. And then specifically, I know a lot of people tell you that there are certain upgrades that you should get, but I think a lot of players are also a bit cautious because a lot of the cards that you need to upgrade this deck are rotating cards that are only going to be available for what, 3 more months? So it's a bit of a weird commitment to say buy a deck that in 3 months time may not be as good anymore. So I just want to take this video to show like some of those cards and show exactly why exactly this deck out of the box isn't that good and why some of those rotating cards are super powerful. All right, and then literally the half if not more of the value of the deck right here in these 6 cards, the Charizards, the Pidgeots, and the Prime Catcher, and then the deck itself with the code card, which I will show right here. So let's look if it is ordered here, and it is not. That's actually good. Okay, so I'm not gonna organize these. You'll see why in just a second. So Charmander, of course, Rare Candy, Ionos, Ultra Balls, a lot of fire energy, by the way. Artisan, Boss's Orders, Moltres. This is one of the first issues with the deck, I will say. This is what Radiant Charizard will replace. It's a 1 prize attacker, essentially. I mean, you lose the bench sniping ability, but it's okay. Charmeleons, TM Evos, very slow, but who knows, it might be a thing that we need if Badoo becomes a thing. Pidgey, unfortunately, it is a 50 HP Pidgey, which is very low. So it's very susceptible to bench sniping. Pidgeotos, more fire energies, Professor's Research. Buddy Puffins and Arvins, very nice for this deck. Rare Candies, Ultra Ball, more Ionos, more fire energy, another Charmeleon. The Charmeleon does have a nice ability though, Flare Veil, so preventing effects from attacks, so it can't get TM devoed and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a future-proofing, so it's kind of like its own protection essentially. Buddy Puffin, Super Odds, very important. Switch, Defiance Band, Iono, more fire, Rare Candy, another Moltres, Bosses, more fire energy, another Buddy and Rare Candy, Pidgey, Ultra Ball, another TM Evo. Not a lot of variety, I will say. Like, we've seen basically the entire deck. The rest of the cards here are just going to be more of the same supporters, items, and whatnot. So, I have most of the upgrades to the deck right here, actually, so I'll show you now. The only card I'm missing is Rotom V, so I'll get to all of them in just a second here. But there's Serendipity, some Duskulls and Dusknoirs, Lumineon, which is rotating. Clefairy is something nice. Radiant Charizard, which is rotating. Hoothoot Noctowl, not really important, but this is just an option that you have. This is why I don't have Rotom, so this is an alternative for me. Briar, Professor Turo Scenario, Thornton, rotating. Professor Trolley, this is just an alternative A-spec that I want. The deck doesn't have any Nest Balls because at its current status, it doesn't really have anything that I would want to Nest Ball. Maybe Moltres, but 2 Nest Balls here. An extra Super Rod, some Counter Catches, a Night Stretcher, Palpad, Jamming Tower, and Collapsing Stadium, and then Forest Seal Stone to go with the Rotom and the Lumineon. We'll pretend that this Miss Energy is a Rotom. So let's start off with the rotating cards because I think those are easier to explain and also those are the more important ones to go over. Starting with Radiant Charizard, arguably one of the most important ones. This is just incredibly good. It's a 1 prizer and it does a lot of damage for very little energy depending on where you are in the game. Now, I know some people have been wondering, oh, maybe you can replace this with Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's similar, right? It has a very big attack. It does less damage, actually, 240, I think. And it has, you know, it can attack for 1 if they go down to 1 prize card. Like, it defeats all purpose because Blood Moon Ursaluna is an EX card. It's a 2 prizer. The 1 prize thing is so huge. You go from a game being 2 prize, 2 prize, 2 prize to now forcing them to take an extra 1 prize along the way. So it's 2, 2, 1, 2. That gives you 1 extra turn to get your attack off. So, I mean, think of it like this. How many times have you played where maybe you're playing against a Gardevoir or whatever, and you KO one of their Pokemon, you go down to 2 prize cards left, and then they put up like a single prize, like a random Cleffa or a Curlier in the active, and you're like, I need to win this turn now, because if I don't, then they will win. But now, I need to have a Boss's Order or something to gust out the Pokemon that's in the active. But then if I use a Boss's Order, I can't play a different supporter like an Arvin a Professor's Research, an Iono, a Professor Sada, something else that would get me more cards that I would need, right? That is the power of this Radiant Charizard. That is the power of it being a one prizer with a big attack. Next up, let's go with the Pseudo Mist Energy, which is the Rotom. Because you are a stage 2 deck, you want to ideally go first more often than not so that you can evolve sooner. Getting out this Rotom on turn 1 and then just getting 3 extra cards for nothing is so valuable. Those 3 cards, that could be a rare candy Charizard that you need for the following turn, right? Rotom and Lumineon to an extent also become targets for the Forest Seal Stone, which I'll get to in just a second. Lumineon. Lumineon is an incredible combo card. This one single, if you have just this card in your hand, and depending on your board setup, for example, let's say you have like a Charmander in the active or whatever, right? Maybe you also have a Pidgey somewhere on the bench. If for whatever reason the only card in your hand is a Lumineon, this in combination with the Forest Seal Stone can get you a Charizard, can get you a Pidgey, and then if you have more cards in hand, it could get you so much more. Here's what you do. You play Lumineon, you use the ability Luminescence, so when it's played from your hand, you can find any supporter. What do you find? You grab Arven. From Arven, you get a tool card and an item card. You grab a rare candy, and you grab that Forest Seal Stone. Now, all of a sudden, you have another search card with the Forest Seal Stone. You attach to Lumineon. You use the V-Star ability to find any card in your deck. Let's say you have the rare candy. Now, you can choose. You can either grab the Pidgeot, you can grab the Charmander. Let's say we grab the Pidgeot instead. We rare candy, evolve into Pidgey. And again, that's if you have no cards in hand. If you, for some reason, or whatever, already had, like, let's say, one other card in your hand that you need for this Charizard, you either have the rare candy, or you have the Charizard in hand already. Then, you can use Pidgeot and quick search for another rare candy, and then just like that, you have a Charizard and a Pidgeot from one single card in your hand, or 2, I guess, if you have the Charizard in hand already. That is incredibly powerful. But let's say, you know, once this is done, Lumineon is kind of pointless, it's just sitting on the bench, it's a liability. They can boss this up, and it's a very easy 170 HP KO as opposed to the 280 or the 330, right? How do you get rid of it? Well, one of 2 ways. You can either play a Collapse Stadium, so if you have a full bench of 5, Collapse Stadium says you can only have 4. If you have one too many, you can just take the Lumineon and discard it. It's no longer in play, they don't get any prize cards, it's fine. Alternatively, let's say for whatever reason they KO your Charizard. You still have Lumineon on the bench. Depending on what you have in the hand, you might think, oh, how do I get a Charizard out in play now? I would first have to bench a Charmander, wait a turn, and then evolve it. That is where our other rotating card comes in, Thornton. This Lumineon can now be switched out with a Pokemon from your discard pile, a basic Pokemon. So now you can get the Charmander back in, and this Charmander keeps the amount of turns that it has been in play in. So Lumineon was in play last turn, so Charmander has been in play for a turn already. You can now quick search for another like rare candy and a Charizard, whatever you need, and now you can go back into the Charizard right away, instantly getting you back into the game without having to wait an extra turn. That is the power of these rotating cards, right? And I think this is a big notion of how important some of these single card combos are. Like, the beauty of Pidgeot is that you can find any single card in your deck, but unless you have good cards in your deck, the ability is pointless. So at base, the deck doesn't have anything good to search for. Like, are you gonna get a Moltres and then you have to still attach like 3 energy to it to attack? Or are you gonna search for a Radiant Charizard that just needs 1 energy to attack and can do a bunch of damage? Now, as for some of these other cards, let's start with Pheasantipity because it's one of the most expensive ones. Honestly, oopsie, I knocked the camera. Pheasantipity is just a really good card. If they get a KO, you just draw 3 cards. We already said that Rotom drawing you 3 cards is very powerful on turn 1. This gets you 3 cards and your turn doesn't even end. It's insanely powerful. And also, I think it's very worth it because unlike these other rotating cards, if you get this Pheasantipity, it's not like, oh no, now I need to make sure I play it. If you don't use it in the Charizard deck, you will use it in a different deck, I guarantee it. And then as for some of these other tool cards or trainer cards, it's fairly simple ones. Super Rod is because you cut out a lot of the fire energy because those are useless for some of these more important cards that you can quick search with Pidgeot. So if you do end up having to discard your Charizard and your fire energies, Super Rod, an extra one will help you get them back. Countercatcher is so that you can always try and go for those 2-2-2 lines. And Countercatcher actually synergizes really well with another card that we'll get to in just a second here. Night Stretcher, again, because we are expecting to get our Pokemon into the discard pile and we don't have many more, Night Stretcher can help us get back that Charizard that just got KO'd or something like that. Palpad is just a nice addition because along the way, you may need to throw out some resources that are kind of valuable. You may need to throw out that Thornton or something. Jamming Tower, this is sort of optional. It depends on the deck. This does cancel your own Forest Seal Stone and Defiance Band, but again, some decks that like to play a lot of Bravery Charms, This can really help out. Again, 2 Nest Balls because this now gets us 3 different targets. Either a Rotom, Serendipity, or Radiant Charizard. Take your pick. And then coming back to the counter catches, Duskull and Dusknoir. This is an absurdly powerful line because it synergizes so well with Charizard. Not only does it do damage, great, it also makes them take 1 prize card, which means that Charizard now does 30 more damage, which means that Radiant Charizard now needs 1 less energy to attack, which means that you could now have a counter catcher active to put in a 2 prizer of theirs. And then also, if you specifically put them down to 2 prize cards left, you now have Briar as an option, which means that your Charizard EX can now get 1 extra prize card. This prize manipulation is so powerful. You can pop something with Dusknoir and then have Briar and counter catcher to just suddenly reverse them from a 3-3 prize race to now you just winning on the spot. And then on the topic of, those liabilities that we were talking about with Rotom and Lumineon, if you don't have Collapse Stadium, if you don't have the Thornton, and especially after rotation, one way to get rid of them, or if your Charizard is in the active and it has taken quite a beating and you don't want to give them the 2 prizes, we have Professor Tura Sonarikyu. You just pick up the Pokemon and take off all damage like nothing ever happened. And then one thing I have, again, just because I don't have Rotom, is just a teeny little Cleffa. It's kind of similar, right? You get some cards in your hand. It's a 1 prize, so you can just toss in the active. We've gone over the upgrades to the list. So, like I said, I do have the Cleffa, I do have the Noctowls, because once these powerful search cards rotate, the Lumineon, the Forest Seal Stone, and the Rotom, it's going to be a lot harder to try and get the cards that you want. So, I know, like I said, some decks are now playing Terapagos as a basic Terra Pokemon, and then Hoot Noctowl to get extra search cards, right? Because like we said, the Lumineon essentially got you your Rare Candy and the Evolution Pokemon. If you have Noctowl, which is Jewel Seeker, which gets you 2 trainer cards, you can maybe get like, I don't know, a Rare Candy and a Terra Orb, or a Rare Candy and an Ultra Ball to get those cards anyway. But again, you do need a Terra Pokemon in play when you evolve, so you either need to have a Charizard EX already in play, or a Terapagos or something like that. But now, just as a quick demonstration of how sort of bad, in quotation marks, this base deck is, because I'm sure you've probably seen many videos of the actual league, or the actual proper deck, maybe at regionals or something like that. I want to show you how quote-unquote bad this deck is out of the box. I'm going to shuffle without sleeves, which is very dangerous, so I'm going to be very careful here. And for the sake of this, let's just say that a lot of the cards that I showed off are the... Well, a lot of the trainer and like a lot of the trainer cards were the fire energy. So if we draw a fire energy, we can say, oh, if only this were a trainer card, a Thornton, a Briar, or something like that. And if we see like the Moltres or the Pidgeotos and stuff like that, we can pretend it's one of the Pokemon. So Duskulls, Dusknoirs, Rotom, Lumineon, stuff like that. So let's do a little sample draw here of cards. 1, 2, 3. Pidgeot EX. Oh, this is actually a great hand. Pidgeot, Charizard, Charmander, Rick. Wow. Okay, I did not shuffle well enough, but 1 extra Charizard here, again, not really nice. We have only 1 card, so we're vulnerable to a Donk here. Again, imagine if this basic energy were something else, like let's say a Nest Ball, we could have gotten a Rotom. Or like, let's say this extra Charizard was a Rotom itself, right? These 5 cards here are a great start, maybe even 4. We don't even need the extra Charizard. But right now, our game would just be start with a Charmander, draw for turn. It would literally just be attach a fire energy, pass, and then pray, right? And then even after that, let's say we survive this donk, right? We draw for turn. Okay, now we finally get an Arven so we can get a Buddy Puffin, right? But it's slow now. Imagine if in the previous turn we had, instead of the fire energy, a Nest Ball, so we had a Rotom, right? Pretend this is a Rotom. We would have had an extra card for the, like, 2 cards, because we would have instant charge at the end of that, and then we would have drawn for this turn. And then also imagine if, instead of like the extra Charizard, this was, say, the Precious Trolley that I added, that I wanted to add to the deck. You can then fill out your entire bench, and then now you would have like a Rare Candy for the Charizard, a Rare Candy for the Pidgeot, an Arven for like more, and you'd have so much more. Let's do one more hand just to show again. Switch, not really necessary. Defiance Band, that's okay. Iono. 1 single Charmander, a Buddy Puffin, and see, again, only 1 single Pokemon in hand. We're vulnerable to a donk. If we're like up against a Miraidon, they will have a field day against us, right? Okay, I guess we have a Buddy Puffin, right? But again, this fire energy could be a Nest Ball for that Rotom. It could be an Ultra Ball for Lumineon, who then can guarantee us an evolution on the following turn and stuff like that, right? Set our price cards down, and then again, let's say we survive the turn, we draw for our next turn. There's a Pidgeot. We have nothing. Oh, I guess we would have had the Buddy Puffin, right? So we could have gotten down the Pidgey and a Charmander, right? But then from there, we have nothing else. We'd have to Iono away this Pidgeot down to the bottom of the deck. So hopefully this has sort of shown you why exactly certain cards are necessary in the Charizard EX battle deck. And maybe, you know, like I said, there's some alternatives for those rotating cards, i.e. the Noctowls and the Terapagos and stuff like that. And hopefully this is sort of giving you a better appreciation for some of these cards that are rotating and that the deck is losing. So, I mean, hey, it's still, what, I think in April only, like early April's 10th of April or something, that rotation actually comes to happen IRL. So you've got 3 months left. You have like a couple of more cups and challenges that you can enjoy this deck in if you do decide to buy some of those rotating cards. But otherwise though, that is going to be it for this video. Until next time, bye bye.